2024. We'll start the update from the Evans Fire Protection District.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the first item we have tonight, Chief DeSalvo and I have been talking, and in an effort to make sure the City Council is duly informed of things that are going on in the fire district, the Chief would like to come before you a couple times a year and just provide some general updates for the fire district. So with that, Chief, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you guys for having me. I know most of you guys, my name is Joe DeSalvo. I'm the fire chief for the fire district. I appreciate you guys having me here tonight. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this was I know that in the past we've had some where we just haven't really talked a whole lot. We've kind of just done our own separate thing. And one of the things I wanted to do is not do that anymore. So in order to kind of work through that, I wanted just to kind of bring some just overall things that we got going on at the fire district. A recap of what we did for last year, and then some stuff we got going on this year so far. To start off in 23, we Evans, LaSalle, and Platte Valley, we established a need for a joint fire district, or a joint fire marshal, not a joint fire district. And we wanted to do that because we all three of our organizations need that capabilities, but we all can't afford one on our own. So we established we figured that this would be the best way to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money, and but still meet our individual needs. So this position was hired this year in 2024. I'll get into that here in just a minute. We signed an automatic aid agreement with the Greeley Fire Department, which will increase the number of personnel who respond to more serious calls both in Evans and Greeley. So it's reciprocal that they provide an engine company for certain incidents, and we do the same thing for them in a defined area. With the mounting maintenance costs of our existing brush truck / light response vehicle, we made the decision to put an RFP and have it refurbished to extend its useful life at a substantially lower cost than purchasing a new one. We're working through that with Supervac out of Fort Collins, Supervac Incorporated. Essentially bringing it from a diesel motor to a gas motor, which is, we all know that's a heck of a lot cheaper to maintain. Mm-hmm. The Evans and Platte Valley dive team, we have a joint dive team with Platte Valley Fire Protection Districts for dive incidents at river, all the lakes in the area. We've been doing that for several years now, but we began to work with the Greeley and Windsor dive teams to basically have a more regionalized approach to dive rescue for all of northern Colorado. It's a similar approach to what the hazardous materials response team is doing that we've been doing for a long time, which it'll benefit all the northern Colorado communities. We continue to develop our peer support team, as well as a partnership with a licensed mental health professional to support our staff and their mental health on some of the calls that we get. And then finally, from 2023, two of our longest tenured firefighters retired, Brandon Belfiore and Sean Walker. They each had over 20 years of experience with 20 years of service with the organization. So those were two pretty tough losses to lose those two individuals. They brought a lot to the organization over the years, and they were kind of my mentors when I first got on as a volunteer. So bring us to this year. At the beginning of January, or the end of January, we hired a joint fire marshal that we feel is a good fit not only for the fire district, but the communities of Evans, LaSalle, and Kersey. Greg Becker, we hired him. He came to us from the Greeley Fire Department. So he was the deputy fire marshal there and aspired to be a fire marshal, and we felt he was a great fit. He actually, Greg was born and raised in Kersey and spent 25 years in Greeley. So he knows the area well, and he is very invested in the community. And he wants to do right, and he is very pro-growth and wants to do what we can to facilitate it from our standpoint as a fire district. And then in early 2023, UC Health approached us with some financial struggles they were experiencing and expressed a desire to switch from a station-based response model to a dynamic response model that's essentially posting throughout the area. This affected 5 fire districts, Evans, LaSalle, Platte Valley, Windsor Severance Fire Rescue, and then Front Range Fire Rescue. Throughout 2023, all agencies collaborated to ensure that the quality and timeliness of service would not be diminished. And on January 7th of this year, that switch was made. The UC Health left our station, but they still continue to post throughout Evans on the border between Evans and Greeley. Their response times have not diminished, and they continue to meet the responsibilities they have to the fire district and into the city of Evans as well. Over the past about 18-ish months, we've had a lot of fires involving garage fires. And the last one we had was February 9th. There's really no connection between the fires. It just seems to be happening. And there's a wide variety of causes for these, and from most of them are accidental, just misuse of whatever. But it's been kind of weird to have. That's what we've run on, and it's kind of crazy. But we've kind of looked at it. I've met with the chiefs from the surrounding agencies and asked them if they've seen the same thing, and they really haven't seen that much. But we talked about that, and they say that's not super uncommon. So it kind of perked up my ears a little bit when I was after the fourth or fifth one. I was like, that's weird. And the last couple of things I have for you is we're in the beginning stages of developing a vision statement for the district, it's going to involve all levels of our internal stakeholders within the organization. Kind of where are we going, and what do we want to be good at? What's our future hold for us? And then at the same time, we're going to beginning to work on a strategic plan that's going to use information that was contained in the master plan that was done in 2019 by a consultant. And then also the feedback from our insurance services office visit in 2022, and then current and anticipated changes to our response area, budget, needs of the community, et cetera. We anticipate involving our internal as well as external stakeholders, such as local business owners and other community members. And with that, that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Or
Any questions, comments?
I have 3, but I can go last.
Fred, go ahead. Go ahead, Fred. I know you kept trying to so go ahead.
He was very eager.
Yes, he was very, I know, I heard him. He was like,
He almost hit Ally.
How do they determine currently who responds for the dive team first? Or they just kind of assign it? Or
so the whole group, they have a separate paging group. So when a call comes out for somebody missing on a lake or whatever, both organizations get paged out to it, but then each individual member of the dive team, they have on their cell phones, they're part of a different group, and they get those notifications as well. So if they're available, they can come in, and they'll coordinate with whoever's on shift, and whoever's on shift basically grabs their stuff, and they establish kind of a rendezvous point, and take whatever. We don't really have a dedicated dive apparatus, so they just grab one of our staff vehicles with they have big boxes of all their equipment, and they head out there. And if it's in Evans, then we'll make the whatever calls needed to get people coming. And if other organizations ask for assistance, they'll specifically ask for the Evans Platte Valley dive team currently. And eventually they're working on trying to figure out what the name is going to be. If just the Northern Colorado Regional Dive Team. Well, I don't know what they're going to call that. That's definitely not I am not a diver by any means.
Have you discovered any common factors in these garage fires?
No, they have all been different causes. We had one that was just down the street from the city manager's house. Misuse of a space heater, a propane heater. We've had someone was welding and wasn't paying attention. So it's a wide variety of things. It really is. It's weird.
It's not all the EV bikes catching fire.
We've had some, not in garages though, that were just not the actual EV bikes, but the lithium ion, the batteries themselves. We had a fire at actually what's it called now? America's Best Value Inn about 2 years ago. That the guy, they woke up and they see fire in the corner of their room.
Fred, any more?
That's it.
Anybody else?
Okay, well, then it's a go for me. So you talked about your strategic planning. Are you looking into any land to build a, station out west? Or do you already have some?
We don't have land that belongs to the district. There is land, so do you recall the Reamer Lake subdivision?
Mhm.
I don't know where that stands, but they actually have a dedicated parcel with our name on it. It's not, we don't own it, so we would still have to purchase it, I'm assuming. I gotta read back into the development agreement, to really make sure, but that's, the strategic plan we're gonna, hopefully, those things will kind of percolate to the top and we can identify what are the needs of the community. Do we want to build, because I don't want to build a station on the very edge of our district. But we do realize that eventually when there starts to get more growth out west, the response time out there is not ideal. I would like to have something a little closer out west.
Sure, the residents would like to, too.
Yes.
So my other question, I had two questions and then a comment. Well, actually, I had two comments. I appreciate you letting everybody know about the dynamic approach that CU is having with their ambulances. I know it caught me off guard. I saw them hanging out in the park and ride, and then I saw them hanging out at the not the library, the Riverside Park, and I thought that it looked a little sketchy, and I didn't realize that it was the actual paramedics until it was confirmed that that's what they were doing. So I'm glad that you have made that public. So the other thing that I want to commend the fire department on, when we have Heritage Day and you do the pancake breakfast, the citizens, that's the biggest compliments that they give as the pancake breakfast. And I really appreciate you guys partnering with us and continuing to host that. It's just a great event. It starts the day off wonderful, and everybody loves to see the fire department as a whole. So I hope you guys continue to do that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I just want to say I like the fact that you're going to do recaps. You said twice a year.
Just as
However,
needed.
as needed.
Yeah, a couple times a year. We really hadn't established anything super formal. I know you guys got a lot on your plates, and basically wherever I can squeeze in, and maybe do one in the fall to kind of, or towards the end of the year to kind of recap the year.
I think it's important. I think, it's like we all need to collaborate together and be like in the know what's happening with anything Evans, right? And it's nice to hear, even if it's, successes, accomplishments, what have you, or how we can collaborate together, or, those kind of things are great just to hear, because we also want to participate in those moments as well. And please keep inviting us.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
No, anybody else? Well, thank you, Chief. We really appreciate it. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you more often. So if it's once a quarter or twice a year, I think whatever works best for staff to get you on here, we love to have you here more often. So
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you guys very much for having me.
yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Good seeing you. Did you say that you mentioned that now that I think about it, all right, it's Liberty Draw here yet?
Yep.
Okay, all right, we'll go ahead and we'll jump to the first item that was supposed to be on our agenda, the Liberty Draw Housing Subdivision Update.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this issue is coming to you as, the intention with this is an update on the construction progress being made over at Liberty Draw. Huge economic development project for the community as we work on both a residential and a commercial economic development approach. As we know, making great progress over there in Liberty Draw, but we also know that as that moves forward, that will have a direct impact on our surface transportation network and whatnot. And so we're continuing to go through and make the widening project. We're going through with the widening project there on 37th Avenue. And so, I'm sorry, 37th Street. So I originally was talking with Mitch Nelson about this project, and we had discussed the importance of getting before the governing body to provide an update for you guys. There's a few different things. So we have, you'll see in Andy's presentation, filing to It looks like they're doing a lot of dirt work in preparation for the public utilities. I'm sure you guys will get into that. And then further to the south, there's filing 3 that is currently in design, expected to be in design until about June. A big part of filing 3 will be the partial extension of Prairie View Drive that they're working through some questions on that. So that's a real quick overview. And Andy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Cody.
You bet.
Thanks, Chief, for saving us today. We had some traffic and our fire chief saved us today for jumping ahead of us. So apologize to City Council for being late this afternoon or this evening. I brought Zach Cesar with me today as well. He's ahead of our construction and our development side. So if there's anything that I can't answer specifically to construction, Zach is here. And if we both look at each other and we can't answer it, then we'll get you the answer some other way. But, you know, nice to see everybody's faces. Some of you are new. Since the last time I was here, I was looking back at my calendar. It was 2 years ago, guys, which is just silly to think. But I sat in this exact chair 2 years ago, and we talked about the future of Liberty Draw, what we saw, what we looked at. Remember, Mayor, we sat and talked a lot about, you know, what the word attainability means and this ever-increasing cost of the world. And, you know, I think we've been able to navigate it really well. You know, city staff has done great. You know, we've had some transition, you know, with Cody coming on board, but we haven't really seen a big dip in our ability to work with specifically like Mark and Rick and the planning side. So kudos to everybody for maintaining that fun, changing life of, you know, employment and people we work with. So cheers to you all. I think, you know, kind of just to first sit down, let you guys know, I think if you drive out there, I hope that you'd like to see what you see. You know, we kind of did, Zach and I did a kind of a walk of the community yesterday, and then we've kind of looked at the overall PUD. And a lot of times, you know, I think when developers specifically sit down with you guys, they kind of have these grand visions and they put in front of you something that you will say yes to, but is unable to be built, right? I think our promise to you from day one was that, you know, if we work together and align ourselves together correctly from the very beginning, we can actually build something that we're planning 2, 3, 4 years in advance. And that even allows us to go in the ebbs and flows of the economy and the market and interest rates and everything that goes, right? And so kudos to staff for working with us as well to just navigate these changing times, because I think this year, you know, looking back, I ask myself for normal. I just want normal. You know, and normal is kind of this new word that no one can tell me what normal means. And I'm like, man, what is normal? COVID year was not normal. And then the 2 years after that was not normal on the demand. And then the last 12 months, the interest rates have created an abnormal situation in the marketplace. But through that all, we're continuing to go. So thanks for that. I think it's really important just to continue to just know where we are and what we're doing. Because a lot of times Zach and I and Mitch and our whole team will work with staff, and it's like, man, do they even, you know, does the city council even know you remember us, right? I mean, it's like, so I think one of the things was we just wanted to be here today, answer any questions specifically you have to see, now that you can see what's going on out there, give you a recap of kind of where we're at, how we got here, and then kind of talk to you about next steps moving forward, kind of so you're aligned when you see something come across city council's agenda, you're like, oh yeah, that's what Andy and Zach were talking about. So with that, is this our right here? I'm always bad at these. All right, so kind of just, I just summarized those, so kind of that'll keep us on pace. If we have to go shorter since of our tardiness, Cody, you can yell at me and tell us. So so this was what was brought back all the way. I want to say the first time we brought this to the city was June or July of 2022. And since then, that PUD has not changed, and we have really maintained kind of the integrity of the original intent. And so that to me is really good. That means we did a good job, both with city staff and with our professionals, really saying what do we want to do and how can we do it in an ever-changing environment, right? And so up here, in the north of Prairie View, if you remember, that's phase 2, 1 and 2, which we platted kind of first. And as if you go out there right now, homes are actually being built in phase 1. Phase 2 is under construction, and we had recently gotten initial acceptance, so we'll start pulling building permits in phase 2. And then if you kind of look Main road that comes in on the east side, I think it's 28th. But west of there is kind of the line, that dividing line of phase 5. And so if you go out there, you'll also see dirt scrapers, and we're actually doing overlap grading on phase 5. Overlap grading is kind of one of these expenses as a developer. We know we have to get at some point and do at some point. It's not like huge costs. It's costs, but not like curb, streets, and gutters, water, sewer, all this infrastructure. That's really where we are not sleeping at night, because that's when we really put our resources and our finances to work. And so you got to watch the market as you go to full development. So everything west there of phase 5, the overlap grading is going to be done. We got that platted and finalized at the end of last year, and so all of that's kind of in place. I think the big thing for you guys just to continue to watch is as we actually develop that, we're planning on, like I said, overlap grading now, but real infrastructure is slated to go in and start and beginning in the next 60 or 90 days. And so that's kind of, we've positioned ourselves to be able to pull a trigger or kind of slow back on the reins if the market tells us slow down or speed up. But everything we can continue to see, we're really committed to phase 5. So it's exciting because I think with phase 5 you get the big regional park, and that's when the non-pot system is coming on board this spring, and so it'll start popping a lot. There's a lot of things that are going to start popping come springtime. So kind of just general themes of phase 5 I want to touch base a little bit with you on is that alley loads, the 3 primary products in Liberty are going to be single family homes, alley load homes, which is a new product that is coming on board in phase 5, and then also your townhomes. And so phase 5 has got roughly 42 alley load product, and so that's going to be the first time we bring a alley load product to Evans. So we're kind of excited to see what the market does. It kind of gives the buyer a different experience. Not as much upkeep as a single family, and you're actually separated from your neighbors from a townhome perspective. So it is a nice additional product offering to the buyers. Then Prairie View Avenue comes through. Let's continue on. So this kind of just is a recap of those phases that I just mentioned. You can see the phasing lines. Everybody gets angry at us when we go from phase 1, 2, and then we jump to 5, and then we go to 3. They're like, why do you even do phasing, Andy? And it's like, well, it just depends on market type, total product needed, and it just allows us, within our development agreements, it allows us flexibility to go from phase 1 to 5, or 1, 2 to 5, or 3, 4. So that's kind of the reason we went to 5. As Cody mentioned, we are coming in we're in our design phase with our planners and our engineers now on phases 3 and 4. That'll be in line again with the PUD, but we anticipate submitting that, guys, in June this year, and then potentially having that kind of same schedule, final plat of phase 3 and 4 by the end of the year. And so, it'll kind of give us some time to kind of work through everything. I think the big piece on this filing, it'll be filing 3 for 3 and 4 is the Prairie View Avenue, and that is an arterial. And so we're kind of working with staff to finalize kind of the design of that and the intent going west and what that looks like, because that'll be a big thoroughfare for the community, just heading east 85 or even further south. So again, I think that's the big part of it, is just that no changes from the PUD, and we've been able to continue operating on that original intent. So any questions specifically on phasing or anything like that? So again, we've been in talks with staff again on what the future of Prairie View Avenue looks like to the west, and it's kind of one of those. We agreed to kind of do some design work to the west of what that looks like, and I think we're working with staff a little bit to say, okay, what does the future hold? We're here today. How do we plan for tomorrow, 2 years, 3 years down the road, of what potentially could be to the west? So continue to work on that. So wanted to bring this to your attention, city council's attention. So, this week we'll be submitting to city staff what's called, from a metro district perspective, it's just called a petition to include future area into the metro district. And so, want to make sure you guys know that that's coming and that you don't say, oh man, what's Andy doing? What is everybody doing? This is just an ability for the metro district to identify property that could potentially be brought into the district. It doesn't change our mill levies. It doesn't change our debt. That is all something that will come at a future date. In order to actually bring it into the district, we have to annex it first. But we can identify it as a future inclusion area prior to it being annexed. And so this is just kind of that first step, everybody, so that we can just continue having conversations. You know, this is 3, 4, 5, 6 years out, depending on market absorptions and timing of everything. But we think from a metro district perspective and just a future perspective, it might be time for us to just start looking at this holistically, both on this, and then we call this the Meyer Farm. We bought this from the Meyer family. So that'll be coming across. So when you see that, you're gonna say, what is this? And Cody can remind everybody of the jargon that I said. So one of the things I think we're all really sensitive to, you know, Cody and I had a meeting last fall when council had to make the decision to increase road impact fees. And I think, you know, one of the things that we, from the beginning, guys, if the intent of the community was that we have to battle the rising costs of everything. No one, including the city, does well with a platted property not sitting and not selling, right? Our goal is to build communities, build rooftops, and at the end of the day, those rooftops are paying taxes, right? And they help everything go, right? And that is the goal of development. One of the things that I spoke, I think, at city council maybe in December when that was approved, but you know, one of the things that we just want to kind of clarify is just our willingness and our desire to continue to have conversations about building permit impact fees and building permit increases. You know, if we know in advance, and I mean even like 6 to 12 months in advance, we can actually absorb that and not just take that hit on day one, right? It just allows us to say, okay, City of Evans has to do this. How do we make sure that our rooftops continue to maintain the absorptions and the rooftops and the market can allow that? And so, you know, I pressed it on Cody, and Cody was very receptive, just of continuing to have those conversations. If the city needs to raise impact fees, let's make sure we're at the table, because we're a big part of the building permits that are coming into the city, right? And so, I think, you know, just this one just alone kind of shows you, taken into all of Liberty as contemplated from 2 years ago to today, we paid $3.5 million in total permits to date, and then carrying it all the way out through phase 5 combined, you'll have about $25 or $29 million worth of permit fees. And so I think that's a big number. And again, I want to stress on you, and I think for me, it's not a matter of, you know, street impact fees, city had to do it, right? Cody and I talked about that, and it's whether it's to fix something or to make sure that there's funds in order to operate. We understand that. We are not asking for a city not to be able to operate, but we are asking just to make sure we're aligned and have conversations about it so we can take downstream measures, whether it's paying for less for the land, doing some different things, negotiating on the front end when doing these next phases.
I would say on that aspect, I mean, we as a council have to set the fees, and of course, growth has to pay for itself. We can't just put that all on our residents. And one of the big things that we have to consider is, you know, we operate a city on 3.563 mills. We're already in arrears in our transportation impact fees, and, you know, we can't just put that all on our citizens to pay. So we have to make some tough choices, and I know that impacts development and everything, but at the same time, when I look at something that in this aspect, I see a metro district that has got 60 mills, and, you know, it can get a home, you know, for a year, $24,000 to $29,000 per year on mills, where our city, if we're lucky, for citizen pays $10. go to McDonald's and buy a combo meal, and you're paying McDonald's more than as a taxpayer in Evans. So we have to really weigh that. We understand growth has to pay it for itself, and we set those phases for everybody across the board. We don't make any changes or offset any costs to developers based on that, because we can't operate on our city with what we have, and we can't put that on our citizens to pay for our growth. So we have to make some tough choices, and sometimes, raising those impact fees, is part of that. And part of that is also, as a developer, we offer it where you can pay those fees up front. That way, if we do make changes to it, you don't pay that additional cost. But I think for us to look at, adjusting our fees, I don't see them going down. We'll see how they go in the future, but a lot of that was just done on research and reports that were provided to us, and where we need to grow as a city to make sure that not only your development, but other developments that come in the city are paying for that growth on our infrastructure and our uses and everything. So, I know it's been a touchy subject for you. I know we've talked about it. I know Cody and I have talked about it as well, but that's kind of where we stand for as a city. It's unfortunate, but from our standpoint as a city is, growth has to pay for itself. I don't have the money to, offset the costs and put that all on the citizens as well. So.
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead, everybody.
I think this is an opportunity clearly to see how we can streamline processes, right? Because I think we all run on timelines, and we could definitely come up and say, hey, just so you know, the city potentially will increase impact fees, just so you know. If you're coming in, these are our timelines, these are our schedules. They may or may not put that into account, and I think, again, that all falls under streamlining, and we have those conversations, as you mentioned, ensuring that we're all on the same page at the front, at the beginning. It's like, and it's like with anything, it's just a moment for us to streamline.
You were gonna say something?
No, I was just gonna add a little bit to your point, though. And I think that it's really important that, that we do have, some notification for our builders that there will be price increases. I don't think that we need to have all of our builders to the table to do this. I think that we've had a lot of internal and external research that it needed to be raised. And I know some people have been on this council a long time, and some people have been watching this a long time. I am the big advocate for the east side, and as an east sider with dirt roads still, knowing that the funds that could be paving some of the dirt roads on that side of town, or filling in the potholes, or remilling, or whatever, are going into a nice brand new housing development that maybe hasn't been charged the correct impact fee, is a little bit upsetting for an old-time resident. So I think that maybe in the future, we may want to consider, instead of doubling it, maybe some incremental, so that it's a little bit easier absorbed. Probably would have been good to go, half of that. I think it went up maybe, $4,500, $5,000, maybe half, and then half to recover from that. But we also know that the developer isn't absorbing those costs. That's being passed on to the person that's buying it. And somebody buying a $295,000 home or a $300,000 home, I don't think that's going to deter them. But what would deter them is if there's lower quality of roads coming into their new housing development. So I'm sorry that you guys had to deal with the brunt of it, but I also think that it had to be done, and then there's probably a better policy that we could have for notifying you guys in the future. And I say any developer. I have some other comments that I can make later.
Okay. You look like you wanted to say something.
Well, I just want to say that I've seen houses, they're still being built in my neighborhood. My company is adding apartments to my complex, and they had to deal with these as well. So I understand, but I would be open to, in the future, like you said, part at one time, part at another, to build up to what we need them to be. But unfortunately, and this isn't you guys or, you know, us, those fees were too low to begin with. And so now that we're catching it up and getting the city where it needs to be, you know, all the developers that we have are paying the price for that, so.
And I'm not discounting you by any means. I'm just saying this is being passed on to any developer that comes in here, but we do really appreciate you being here in Evans and building in Evans, and we don't want to lose that business aspect with you, and we hope you continue to build in Evans. I'm just letting you know kind of where we are from a perspective. You know, as we come from a city, you know, just sales tax and a very low mill levy is what we operate this city on, and there's a lot of things we need to do for this city, you know, and sometimes we don't like to pass along more fees to developers or anybody else, but you know, as you know, as a business developer, that's just sometimes the cost of doing business. I mean, I know we have a lot of plans for the city, trying to build a police station, looking possibly at a rec center, doing lots of road improvements and infrastructure improvements. Unfortunately, we just don't have the capital to do that, and sometimes we just have to raise fees to kind of help offset all that additional development that's going on.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think, you know, I don't know if I talked about this 2 years ago, but, you know, the town of Alt is a great example for us. You know, I think at the time they had one of the lowest property tax mill levies in the state. And they said, this is how much we need, right? They actually had a number that said, this is how much we need to make sure we're good and to take care of our roads and our streets and our impacts. And so, you know, that was 2 years before we would do any platting stuff. And so that allows us to be able to say, okay, if you need X, how do we really tier ourselves in from a sales perspective, absorption perspective, and just allows us that so we don't hit, you know, $8,000 difference in 1 year on a single family, or, you know, $7,500 on a townhome, right? Because that's a pretty big percentage of the overall sales cost. So there are methods and ways for us to do it and do it correctly without anybody being shorted any money, right? And I think, and additionally, I think the conversation that also has to be had too is, you know, when we're doing a big development like this, you know, Prairie View Avenue, all these offsites, you know, part of that is that big overall cost, and offsites are a big piece of that. And so when we're first starting this whole community and the project, we're saying, okay, Prairie View is a big arterial. We have to build that thing. It's a huge deal. And so the question becomes is, okay, how do we make that thing financially work, right? Metro District is a big piece of that, but then also there's other conversations. You know, do we partner with the city on additional improvements? You know, 37th Street, those kind of things. I mean, there's just so many things that can be had instead of actually having a partnership with the developer of actually improving roadways and stuff adjacent to an offsite. So, yeah, that'd be my piece on that.
I appreciate that, you saying that, just because, again, it's nice to hear, like, that your perspective as a builder. You know, it's like us as a city, as, you know, we're smaller, right? But it's true. Like, we need to say, hey, this is what we have going on in our city. This is how we would like to collaborate with you. This is what we need. Yep. And I think let's not be afraid to ask, and let's not be afraid to work together. Yep. So, I mean, I appreciate that. It's eye-opening for me.
Yep.
Well, and I also understand it as an entrepreneur and as a businessman. If all of a sudden the COG costs go up, we're not forecasting that, and we expect the product to hit the market at a certain price point. I understand on the city side that we had to do these actions, or else at the end of the day, it's about operational business. We have to make the money to make sure we're paying the bills. I hear you, if I heard you correctly, just an invite to the table, so that when those COG costs are forecasted, we can at least bring you in and let you know how that's going to impact you. We're probably not going to bring a lot of vendors in, but big players that support our city, we should probably have a conversation with. I appreciate the fact. I loathe when suppliers just dump costs onto me. And so I'll do what we can to not do that, but thank you for at least.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Crabtree, I think the you know, City of Greeley kind of has this very long, progressed conversation, and they bring all their stakeholders to the meetings, right? So it's kind of this opposite, you know, where they bring everybody. You know, it sits a room, and everybody at least allows us to vent and let our voice be heard. And then at the end of the day, when we always walk out and say, the city's going to have to do that. We know that, right? But at the very least, we heard, we vent a little bit, and then we have a time span to work back from. Right?
I understand that.
That's the key.
And I hear that.
Yes.
For 44 years, I've been sitting out in that audience and listening to every mayor up there and over there, and people on the council say that we can't afford it. We're not gonna do it. We're gonna let development pay for it. We can't expand 37th Street because we're gonna let development pay for it. Now, that I'm on city council, I find out with this last rate study that, our impact fees, we've lost over $9 million in impact. And that is impossible to catch up. And I, as a resident, have been denied services because my money has to go and pay for the former people that chose to develop here. And I'm sorry, but that rate study said we need to increase those fees. That's what we had to do.
Right. That does,
It's unfortunate, but when I go to the gas station down here, and they've raised the price 20 cents down, there's nothing I can do about it. That's just the nature of the game.
I know we're playing a lot of catch up,
Yeah.
but we have capital improvements that are happening to the city, and we're just trying to bridge this all together. So yes,
exactly.
yeah, we're behind the Powerball. Our job as council is to bring it up to speed and to bring partners in and at least let them know what's coming down the pipeline. I respect both sides of that. It's frustrating on this side. It's frustrating on our side. We're all gonna make this together, and I'm not worried about the future now.
Right.
We've corrected the issue. We just now need to know how to communicate that with our fellow.
It's been extremely frustrating for me to have to say, okay, I thought we were gonna be able to do something about these rising prices and costs to the residents. And I hate to sit here and have to vote on increases for the water rates. the sewer
No, I
rates, and all
was gonna
that.
cut him off there in a second.
To find out the cost of construction has gone up, has doubled or tripled on part for a street. And we have to be able to provide that.
All right,
The only way to provide that is to raise prices.
all right.
Fees, costs.
All right, so, I'm sorry, we didn't mean to digress off that, so,
Right in the middle.
Yeah.
Presentation.
so,
No, that's,
Sorry.
yeah, everything you guys are saying, I get. I think the biggest thing for us, and even Councilman Neal, the question always is how do we, because we're at the table, take care of, past sins, right? And the sin is there, so it's like not even admit, like it's there. Like we have a lack of funds, let's fix it, right? And so I'm not here to talk about the fact that you had to raise them. I'm here to talk about the fact that we need to know what it's going to be and when it's going to be, right? And that's the key. And so that you all can leave this table in 2, 4, 6 years and say, at least we fixed those sins and we made it better. That's our job, right? So,
That's my goal.
Yep.
To make it better.
Yep.
And so, this is the first and youngest city council I've known in that 44 years, and they're looking ahead, and they're trying to, they're playing catch up, and it's tough.
I think I'll just kind of end everybody, just with this, again, reiteration of everything we've talked about. Please work with us to maximize our partnership together. Too oftentimes jurisdictions make unilateral decisions that negatively impact the overall community instead of working on a proposed structure that gets everyone what they need without negatively impacting the overall market and sales. I'm going to say something very not politically savvy, but you can blame it on me, Cody. I really, I hate taxes. I mean, I am a really born and raised tax averter. But I would say also that, I get it that we have to increase impact fees, but I would also tell this council that you need to look at what does it take to increase overall property taxes across your entire city. Because City of Greeley has 11.274 tax millage, City of Evans has 3.536.
we're working on that.
And so,
We're working on
you
that.
can,
We're working on that.
so you can blame me if you need to, councilman and
No.
ladies, but I think that's just, It's one of those things that everybody in this audience and in your city understands the rising costs of everything. And when you look at your costs, you know, Wall Street Journal on Friday had a front page deal of the rising costs of everything, right? And so how in the heck are we supposed to operate in the rising costs of everything if we can't increase our revenue streams? You already hit on the impact fees and the building permit stuff. You got to look at the other side too. So
If you could bring me a notarized permission slip.
no,
Right.
no, they're gonna say that guy.
We have it on, it's recorded.
Yeah, there you go.
Just kidding.
Now, you know, and I've always been against taxes, specifically the federal government, because they go into this big coffer. But local taxes is something I can get around, whether it's metro district in the entire district or local taxes within the district of the cities, right? I mean, it is a much palatable tax when you can actually see your roads being built, right? And you know when your dollar's going. I don't know where my federal money goes.
So,
You know,
Go ahead.
all of this, sometimes we have to have these hard conversations, you know, to find a common ground, right? And I think we all feel and think the same, but I lost my.
so
train of thought.
I think we may have found somebody to help promote our mill levy increase for the voters
And
right
so-
there.
And so the thing is, now, thank you. Now I'm back. Okay. So the thing is, it's about, you know, there's certain things that we need to do within our city that we know, and that takes
Irritating.
everybody because it goes to a vote, right?
Yep.
But it's explaining it in that way, and we need people like you, like business owners, what have you, you know, just citizens that understand that and that can help, you know, help us all get to where we need to get to. Do we like that things increase? No. Would we like to stay where we are? Yes, but unfortunately, that's not the way the world works. Everything increases, you know, and so we need to work with what we have to an extent, but sometimes it's not workable, and so we need to do something about it. So,
I have driven by several times, and I love the architectural
Yeah,
finish
that's
that you're doing. It's very pleasing. I want to drive into the subdivision. You're doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
The question that I do have is, what about any commercial development for? Nope. Okay. So this is all residential. We're just baking everything on roofs.
It's all residential.
How long on average is it taking you to build a home? Because every time I drive by there, I see one, and then couple days later, I'll drive by and I'm like,
They're like
wait,
rabbits.
it's like 5 more built.
that's a good
As
analogy.
easy as you think.
About 5 months? Really? Okay, because I was sitting there, like I said, every time I drive by, it's like, there's one, now there's 5. So,
I do have
They
a
don't have
question, though.
basements though, right?
Yeah, the slab on grades are about 5 months. Basements add another 30 to 60 days.
So I have a question. So on 37th, clearly it's going to expand, right? And I've seen like they look like townhomes on 37th, and I don't know what that setback is. Is it 50 feet or like that setback? You know,
They're way more there.
is it more? I don't know. Just from like when I'm driving, it looks like 50.
There's a big open section.
yeah.
Because as I'm driving, of course, and I'm always looking at everything, I'm thinking, of course, we're expanding, right? So how much is it going to eat into that setback, you know?
Yep.
And then right now that there's that portion, but as you continue to build in specific areas that we know it's going to expand, granted, we may have talked about this. I mean, have we thought about that?
Yeah.
Because
So,
I was looking at that diet.
Give you a perspective, if you drive out there, so where that 28, if you drive along 37th, we stop the curb about to where the right-of-way line is, I believe. So
Okay.
that gives you an idea of where the future road will actually be. So that's kind of a reference point. So it's a pretty good clip. I mean, setback off of
Okay.
there. It won't be like the cashed off apartments across the
Well, that's why I was like kind of worried about that. And as I was driving, I was just like trying to like in my head, like, okay, 10, 20, 30. I'm like, how many feet is it, you know, counting? And so, okay, good to know. I appreciate that because now I can look at that and see.
So that kind of leads into my point. I appreciate you guys actually building out. We've had a lot of developers come with plans and it hasn't come to fruition. But I would caution the council a little bit on some of the future councils. We've mentioned this before. We look at the maps and we see a very linear plan, and then when the plan is approved and then comes into fruition, I think the plan is a little bit different. For me, the homes seem in person, smaller and closer than what I was expecting. And in the future, we have talked about how we have a bunch of starter homes. We don't have a bunch of move up homes. And in fact, last Thursday night at the county event that we had with the commissioners, every single municipality was saying that they wanted to have estate homes. Every single municipality said that. We need to keep in mind that that was also a goal of this municipality, and that sometime in the future, hopefully we have developers that will come in and actually do some estate type
We
homes.
have a developer right here, and it sounds like he's having a good experience with Evans, so maybe he'll continue to look at other places in Evans and
Yeah,
say,
he lives
hey.
in Windsor and he knows what I'm talking about on estate type
Or I
homes.
think it all depends on the underlying financial aspect of the land and water, right? Zach and I actually, this 2 weeks ago, we were sitting at our table and we said, is it time, how can you make a estate lot work, right? And it just, the question for me is, can I find some attainable land and divide it up by, if they're 1 acre estate lots, right? I mean, that's the whole, what we do is not stupid hard, because we're kind of stupid sometimes. But it's really like, okay, if this property is $1 million, if it's $1 million for 10 acres, I know I can get 20% open space, curb streets, gutters. That gives me 8 acres of developable area. I can go at 8 1-acre parcels. So that would mean 1 million divided by 8 is I have to work. That's how I have to work that, right? And so it's not really hard for us to just do some of those. Even we could sit back at a work session and say, how do we get here? City council can do policies, water policies, permit policies to get that stuff going. Part of it, we have some properties kind of in northern Colorado that don't have sewer ability right now, and so areas that don't have sewer is a great spot for us to do estates, because then we can do septic, and we only have to run water, gas and electric, and so it's really a kind of a piece of property from the beginning. And how do we make it financially work? I look at, and again, right now we're in this weird zone. I think there's more $1 million homes being sold than like $600,000 homes in northern Colorado, which makes sense because there's more people there's some people with cash, and then that middle class is just getting crunched right now with costs, right? And so even when you say estate lots, the question becomes well, what's the purchase price or the retail price that we need to shoot for to get what you're looking to achieve, right? If you're looking for $800,000 estate lots, that's great. How do we make that work financially backwards, right?
I know it's
been here.
if there's a place that was for sale in Neville's Crossing, it is a knockdown drag out on that. And I know that there's one of our neighbors in Arrowhead had their house on the market for 5 days, and it was
gone,
a $900,000 house. So, people are really looking for
Maybe
that.
that's something that we can discuss in the future and everything, because I know a lot of us have mentioned that over time, because I know you have a young family and they're looking to move up and have something bigger. I know there's a lot of people in here that goes, oh, we don't have anywhere to move up. We have a starter home, our family's growing, we need more space. I have to look outside of Evans, and I think that's something that we need to really start maybe in a future conversation as where does that work for Evans and how we can make that work. But I think that might be a great idea, a great partnership for us to maybe sit down at the table and have that discussion if, something that you would want to entertain.
The median age in Evans, it's 29.
Yeah.
So we have a young families here, young people, and typically starter homes, right? But then when they start to age out, or their families start to grow, it's like now for me, it's like, okay, I'm on council, so I'm kind of restricted. I'm going to stay still, right? But if I want to move, which I looked, I didn't find anything at all. And so I stopped looking, and then, rates went up. So I'm like, I'm staying here. I'm just going to remodel my house, but it's needed. It's definitely needed.
So I want to make one more point too. You guys are building alley loading homes. We have a trash service that has said that they will not service alley loaded pickup for their trash service. So
Or side what is it, cause they're side or? what
There's
is it?
side,
trucks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
they're
truck.
new trucks, they're all their new trucks, do that. So I just think that if you, they're, an area that is doing that and they're planning on building more of them, that as a council, we probably need to look into our waste management contract.
Agreed.
So that we can provide services for them.
But not only that,
Oh,
look into all the services, like waste management services out there, and if they're all upgrading to that type of truck, then clearly it doesn't make sense.
Well, Mark just also said the overhead power lines are also part of the
The
issue.
issue is the overhead service lines and the trees in the alley. And then with these guys alley loaded, there won't be any overhead period,
You know,
and there won't be any trees.
Mark, they say that, but I watch them come pick that up every day, and the little, the arm that tosses it in does not even go above the
Well, but
top
I'm
of their
not
truck.
saying
Yeah,
that-
yeah, I know, but I'm just
that's
saying
what
that,
they're saying.
that's what they're
They are
saying.
making it easier for their guys to do it, and, but in this case, since all their power is underground, and there are no trees in the alleys, and all these alleys are pulled through, just like the ones on the east side, there's no turning. Whereas in some places where you have dead-end alleys, the operator has to drive in, pick up the cans, and then back out.
So they should be able to in that
Yeah,
neighborhood.
well, I still,
You said it has small arms. I thought like, it has T-Rex arms.
So anyway, do we have any more questions for him on this related topic? Or comments?
Mine is more for Cody and probably Mark. So I know we're widening 37th, but I still, not where Stampede Drive is, but the one in the middle where their main entrance is right now for the build.
38.
Yes. I already get frustrated. People are pulling out in front of me with nobody behind me, or they're pulling out the other way with people coming at them. I can't remember, are we going to have a stop sign there, like a four-way stop? Are we going to have a light? And then also, when they get there, Prairie View Drive, that's already a little crazy of an intersection. So are we going to do a light or something there? And then with Stampede Drive, even last night, I was driving down 37th, and someone on my side cuts out in front of me. I'm pretty close, almost hit him, and nobody was behind me. And I know we talked about a hard right out and a hard right in, but I worry about that intersection too, because if we're going 4 lanes, we've got boom, boom, boom intersections. And so I can't remember what we had discussed for those, but I just, people don't care, and they'll pull out in front of you no matter what. And so I just want to put that bug in your ear, especially when their properties, they have already got a lot of people in there, but we're going to get more in there. And I don't want to deal with wrecks and things like that.
So make sure
Very
engineering's involved.
congested.
I
Something.
agree.
I worry. Even before that was my worry. And not that I don't want the development, that's not what I'm saying at all. It's just traffic is a worry, period.
Welcome to growth.
Well, and that's,
Yes,
Yep.
but we gotta do something, cause I don't wanna hit anybody and get blamed for, rear-ending them when they pulled out in front of me.
right, and that was part of my opening comments, right? The more that this develops, the more that Evans develops, we're gonna encounter those issues that we're gonna have to work through, right? And so our engineering team is gonna have to look into those things. And I know that Mark and Leon do analyze a lot of that. So these are the growing pains of a growing city, right? These are those things that we've got to work through, that we will work through, to make sure that our transportation network is as safe as possible. Do you have anything to add?
With 2A, which is gonna start construction, hopefully, in 2 weeks, we're building a dedicated right turn lane into Stampede. We're building 2 dedicated left turn lanes into Stampede, one to go north, one to go south. So that'll be done this summer. And then these guys are gonna help us out. They're gonna add some asphalt on 38th, to create the dedicated turn lanes with striping only. There'll be turn lanes for anybody who wants to turn right up to go north on 38th or south into Liberty Draw. And then when we build phase 2B, whether it be next year or in 2026, then we'll build in the islands with the actual hardscape dedicated turn lanes. So you won't have to wait for somebody making a left. They'll have their own lane to make that left. And it's, the left is more critical than the right.
Right.
That's where you get the people.
Mhm.
hanging out.
Yes.
And then, yes, eventually, there will be a traffic signal at Prairie View and 35th Avenue, eventually. And they're one of the intersections between 35th and 47th. Most likely Palermo will get the first traffic signal, because that's the school traffic.
Okay.
And that's potentially school traffic in both directions.
Any other, so,
Thank you, guys.
Fred, you keep raising your hand, go ahead.
Just another comment for Andy on the property tax issue. It is my firm belief that the fire district was created specifically because the mayor that time said he was not going to raise property taxes, be the first mayor to raise property taxes. And that's, my firm belief, that's the only reason the fire district was created. Because Evans certainly could have raised property taxes and kept it within the city budget.
So Chris, did I see you? No, okay. Oh, anybody else have any questions or comments specifically to the project?
I do. So I know we were discussing earlier, Prairie View, and so of how it's gonna look going west. But I think and granted, I'm thinking of the area, because the only thing I think of Arrowhead, and I know it kind of makes a turn. I don't know if there's a connector to it. There isn't, right? Would it connect to Arrowhead? No?
No,
Well,
there's wetlands there.
that's a hard one.
Oh, you're talking about
So
before.
it's gonna
Into
be
the
like,
lake.
it's gonna be like like perpendicular to Arrowhead, you know what I mean? It's gonna go just butt up to it, and then,
No, the original idea was that it would curve and go and line up with Sienna. But depends on what's happening with the Wiedemann parcel.
well, the reason why I say this is because if that were to happen, I'm not saying that it is, that would alleviate traffic, because then everyone that lives there, instead of taking 37th, because they'll know it's gonna be a nightmare, they'll take Prairie View all the way up and make it right into the traffic circle. Just saying. Another way to funnel people.
That's what we were originally thinking, but we were told there was wetland and couldn't go all the way.
So there's wetland before? I thought it was wetland.
All right, any other
I don't have any
additional?
more questions for these gentlemen. Thank you. Keep up the good
Yeah.
hard work.
Did you have
I
anything?
love what I see.
Are you guys done? Okay, well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate the update.
Thank you very much.
Place is
Thank you.
it's looking great out there, so.
Thank you, Cody.
You bet.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, it's 6:38. We'll take a 22-minute break. We'll start promptly at 7, so we'll see you up there.